I woke up at 2:13 a.m. to the sound of our front door clicking shut. Not slamming, clicking, like someone trying not to be heard. My heart hammered as I lay there in the dark, staring at the empty space beside me where my wife should have been sleeping. The sheets were still warm. I threw them off and rushed to the window, pressing my face against the cold glass just in time to see Melissa's car pulling out of our driveway. No headlights. She turned them on only after reaching the street. This wasn't the first time. For 3 weeks, I've been waking up to an empty bed, convincing myself I was imagining things. But tonight, something snapped inside me. I grabbed my keys from the nightstand, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and fear. I had to know where she was going. I had to know why my wife of 6 years was sneaking out in the middle of the night like a teenager breaking curfew. I rushed down the stairs, fumbling with my shoes. But when I looked out the front window again, my blood ran cold. Her car was already turning back onto our street, headlights cutting through the darkness like she'd sensed something was wrong. I barely made it back upstairs before I heard her key in the lock. My chest was pounding so hard, I thought she'd hear it from downstairs. I dove into bed, pulling the covers up and forcing my breathing to slow down. The stairs creaked under her weight as she climbed them carefully, each step deliberate and quiet. She slipped into the bathroom first. I heard water running, drawers opening and closing. When she finally came to bed, she smelled like perfume. Not her usual scent. Something floral and expensive that made my stomach turn. I pretended to sleep, but every muscle in my body was tense. In the morning, I found her in the kitchen, humming while making coffee. She was unusually cheerful, almost glowing. When I asked where she'd been last night, her smile didn't even flicker. Just couldn't sleep, went for a drive to clear my head, she said, pouring cream into her mug. Her voice was so casual, so practiced, but her hands trembled slightly as she stirred. A drive? At 2 a.m? I kept my tone light, testing her. She laughed, actually laughed. You worry too much, babe. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine, and we both knew it. Later that morning, I took out the trash. It was my turn, something I usually did without thinking. But as I walked past the coat closet, something caught my eye. Melissa's jacket was hanging there, the one she'd worn the night before. I glanced around, making sure she was still upstairs, then reached into the pockets. My fingers closed around something papery. A receipt. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Lakeside Inn, room 247. Checked in at 11:47 p.m. The date matched last night. My vision blurred for a second. A hotel. She'd been at a hotel 20 miles away while I slept in our bed, trusting her, believing her lies. I stuffed the receipt back into her pocket and finished taking out the trash, my mind racing. When I came back inside, she was coming down the stairs, dressed for work. She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just destroyed everything we'd built together. You okay? You look pale, she asked, tilting her head with fake concern. I'm fine, I lied, just tired. She smiled and grabbed her purse. Get some rest today, okay? Then she was gone, leaving me standing there with a hotel receipt burning a hole in my memory. I waited until her car disappeared down the street before I pulled out my phone. My fingers felt numb as I dialed the number on the receipt. Lakeside Inn, how can I help you? A cheerful voice answered. Hi, I stayed there last night and think I left my scarf in room 247. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Let me check for you. What name was the reservation under? I swallowed hard. Melissa Bryant. There was a pause, then typing. Yes, Mrs. Bryant checked out this morning. We haven't found any items left behind, but I can note it in case housekeeping discovers anything. Thank you. I managed before hanging up. So it was true. She'd actually spent the night there. I sat down on the couch, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. That's when I saw it. Her phone was charging on the kitchen counter. She must have forgotten it in her rush to leave. The screen lit up with a notification. A text message preview. Same time tonight? Can't wait. The sender's name was just a single letter. K. My hands clenched into fists. Same time tonight. She was planning to do it again. right in front of me, lying to my face while planning her next escape. That evening, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I started documenting everything. I took photos of the receipt before she got home. I wrote down timestamps of when she left and returned. I started a folder on my laptop labeled work projects, hiding screenshots and notes inside. She came home around 6, apologizing for forgetting her phone. Did I miss anything important? She asked, scrolling through her messages. I watched her face carefully. Nothing showed. No guilt, no panic. Just a slight smile as she typed a quick reply to someone. That night, she made dinner. We ate together like a normal couple, talking about our days, laughing at something silly on TV. But I couldn't taste the food. I kept thinking about that message. Same time tonight. Around 11, she yawned dramatically. I'm exhausted. Think I'll head to bed early. I nodded, pretending to focus on my laptop. She kissed the top of my head before going upstairs. An hour later, I heard her moving around. Then the front door clicked shut. I moved the window, watching her car pull away. But this time, I heard something different. Before she got in her car, she'd been standing outside talking to someone. Her laugh drifted up through the night air. Light, happy, free. A laugh I hadn't heard in months. The next day, I bought a GPS tracker online. Small, magnetic, easy to hide. It arrived 2 days later in discreet packaging. Installing it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Not physically, but emotionally. Because once I put that tracker on her car, there was no going back. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was evidence gathering. I waited until she was in the shower one Saturday morning. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it twice. I knelt beside her car in our garage, finding the perfect spot under the rear bumper. The magnet clicked into place. I stood up, brushing off my knees, and that's when I heard footsteps. She was walking into the garage, hair still wet, towel around her shoulders. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. My heart stopped. "Just checking your tire pressure," I said, forcing a smile. "Looked a bit low yesterday." She studied me for a long moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. Then she smiled. "Thanks, babe. You're always taking care of things." But her smile didn't reach her eyes. As she walked back inside, I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app. It was already working. A small blute showed her car's exact location, right here in our garage. Then, as I watched, it started moving. She was leaving, right now, without telling me. I let her get a head start before following. The blute out on my phone moved steadily through town, taking familiar roads at first, then turning into neighborhoods I didn't recognize. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. She drove for 20 minutes before finally stopping. The app showed her parked on Pinewood Avenue. I knew that street. Quiet, residential, expensive homes with manicured lawns and tall privacy hedges. I parked 2 blocks away and walked carefully, staying in the shadows. Her car sat in front of a large colonial-style house with dark blue shutters. Every light inside seemed to be on. I watched from behind a tree as she got out, checked the reflection in the car window, and smoothed down her dress. A dress she'd changed before leaving. She walked up the front door and knocked twice. My heart hammered in my chest. The door opened almost immediately. A man stood there, tall, maybe 40, with dark hair and an easy smile. He said something I couldn't hear. She laughed, and then he reached out and hugged her. Not a quick, friendly hug, a long, familiar embrace. His arms wrapped around her waist. Her head rested on his shoulder. They stood like that for several seconds before going inside together. The door closed behind them, and I stood there in the dark, my entire world crumbling. I stayed outside that house for 2 hours, watching, waiting, hoping I was wrong about what I'd seen. But I wasn't wrong. Through a gap in the curtains, I could see them moving around inside, laughing, sitting close on the couch. At one point, he touched her face. She leaned into it. My stomach turned. I wanted to storm in there, to break down that door and demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe, deep down, I knew that confronting her without proof would give her a chance to twist everything, to make me look crazy and controlling like she'd already started doing. So instead, I took photos. The house number, his car in the driveway, her car parked out front. I zoomed in on the license plate. Then I walked back to my car, got in, and sat there shaking. My phone buzzed. A text from her. Went out for groceries. Need anything? I stared at the message. Groceries. Another lie. So casual. So comfortable with her deception. I typed back, we're good. Thanks. Then I drove home, my mind spinning with rage and hurt and a growing determination. She wanted to play games? Fine. But I was going to make sure I won. That Sunday, while she took a long bath, I noticed her laptop sitting open on the dining table. She'd forgotten to log out. My heart raced as I sat down, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I knew this was crossing a line, but she'd already crossed so many. I opened her files and started searching. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Work documents, family photos, shopping lists. Then I found a folder buried deep in her documents. It was labeled personal calendar. Inside were spreadsheets, dates going back 3 months. Each date had a simple coded entry beside it. P11, P12, L2, M1. I compared them to my own calendar, matching the dates with the nights she disappeared. Every single one lined up perfectly. P probably meant Pinewood, the street where that house was. The numbers were times. 11 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m. But what was M? And L? Other locations? Other people? My stomach dropped. I took screenshots of everything, saving them to a hidden cloud folder. Then I heard the water draining upstairs. I closed the laptop quickly, putting everything back exactly as I'd found it. When she came downstairs in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, I was reading a book on the couch. She smiled at me. Such a relaxing bath. I'm thinking of ordering Thai food for dinner. What do you think? Sure. Sounds great, I said, not looking up from my book. Because if I looked at her, she'd see everything in my eyes. The hurt, the anger, the knowledge that I now had proof of her lies. I couldn't keep it all inside anymore. The next day, I met my best friend Troy at a coffee shop downtown. We'd known each other since college. If anyone would understand, it would be him. He took one look at my face and knew something was seriously wrong. What happened? He asked, setting down his cup. So I told him everything. The late-night disappearances, the hotel receipt, the house on Pinewood, the coded calendar, the lies. Troy listened without interrupting, his expression darkening with each detail. When I finished, he leaned back and whistled low. Man, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted, but I need more proof before I confront her. Good call, he agreed. Document everything. Get a lawyer. Don't give her a chance to turn this around on you. We talked for another hour, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't drowning alone. But I should have been more careful. Troy mentioned my situation to his girlfriend, asking for her advice. She told her sister. Her sister knew Melissa's coworker. Within 3 days, rumors were spreading, and Melissa found out. She stormed into the living room that Thursday night, her face red with fury. How dare you tell people we're having problems? She shouted. Who have you been talking to? What lies are you spreading? I stared at her, stunned by the accusation. Lies? You're calling me a liar? You're making me look bad, dragging our marriage through the mud with your paranoid theories. I felt something break inside me, but I kept my voice calm. If you want to talk about lies, Melissa, we can definitely have that conversation. She glared at me, then grabbed her purse and keys. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. I can't deal with this. The front door slammed behind her, and I knew exactly where she was really going. 2 days later, Melissa suggested marriage counseling. I think we need professional help, she said over breakfast, her voice gentle and concerned. You've been so stressed lately, and these trust issues are getting out of hand. I almost laughed. Trust issues. As if I was the problem. But I agreed, because I was curious to see how far she'd take her lies. We got an appointment with Dr. Helen Carver for the following Tuesday. The office was small and comfortable, with soft lighting and plants in every corner. Dr. Carver was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a notepad that never left her lap. So she began, "What brings you both here today?" Melissa jumped in immediately. "My husband has been accusing me of terrible things. He doesn't trust me anymore, and I don't know why. He checks up on me constantly, questions where I've been. It's suffocating." Dr. Carver turned to me. "Is that accurate from your perspective?" "Not exactly," I said carefully. "I've had concerns about some behaviors, but I haven't been accusatory." "What kind of behaviors?" the therapist asked. Before I could answer, Melissa spoke up. "He thinks I'm sneaking out at night. It's ridiculous. I've had insomnia. Sometimes I go for drives to clear my head." Dr. Carver nodded, making notes. Then she looked directly at Melissa. "These drives, do you usually let your husband know beforehand?" Melissa froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. I don't want to wake him," she stammered. "But you have your phone with you, correct?" Dr. Carver's voice was gentle but firm. "You could send a text." Melissa's face went pale. She realized she'd been caught in the lie, and for the first time, she had no easy way out. After the therapy session, I needed answers about the money. I'd been so focused on where Melissa was going that I hadn't thought to check our finances. That night, while she was asleep, I logged into our joint bank account. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 3 months, money had been steadily disappearing. Small amounts at first, 200 here, 300 there, then larger chunks. 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, all marked as transfers to an external account. I dug deeper, tracking down the account number. It belonged to Melissa, a personal account I didn't even know existed. But what really shocked me was a deposit from 2 weeks ago. $5,000. The memo line read, "Deposit from K. Patterson." K, the person who'd been texting her. The same person, I was now certain, who lived in that house on Pinewood. I took screenshots of everything. Every transfer, every deposit, every lie reflected in dollars and cents. She'd been building a secret financial life, draining our shared resources to fund whatever future she was planning. A future that clearly didn't include me. The betrayal went deeper than just physical cheating. This was calculated, premeditated. She'd been planning this for months, and I'd been completely blind to it. When I finally closed the laptop, the sun was starting to rise. I hadn't slept at all, but I had something more valuable than sleep. I had evidence, and I was ready to use it. I needed to know who K. Patterson was. The name had been haunting me since I saw that deposit. I started with social media, searching through Melissa's connections. Nothing obvious came up. Then I tried a different approach. I looked up the address on Pinewood Avenue in the county property records. Owner, Keith Patterson. Age 42. Recently divorced. I cross-referenced his name with Melissa's LinkedIn profile. There he was. Keith Patterson, senior marketing director at her company. They'd worked together on a major campaign 2 years ago. I found photos from company events. The two of them standing together at a conference. Him giving a presentation while she watched from the front row. In one photo, they were laughing at something, standing close, comfortable. I dug deeper. Keith had gotten divorced 8 months ago, right around the time Melissa started acting distant. And according to his professional profile, he'd recently been promoted to vice president. The announcement mentioned his successful campaign leadership, crediting the outstanding support from his team, especially Melissa Bryant. She'd helped him get promoted, spent late nights working on proposals, attending strategy meetings. Or at least, that's what she'd told me. Now I understood what those late nights had really been about. My wife hadn't just been cheating. She'd been building a whole new life with someone else. Someone successful. Someone who could give her the lifestyle she'd always wanted. Everything started making sense. The new clothes, the expensive perfume, the way she started talking about wanting more from life. She'd been preparing to leave me all along. The next night, Melissa came home later than usual. She was distracted, humming to herself as she kicked off her heels. I watched from the kitchen doorway as she tossed her purse on the couch. That's when I saw it. A key card slipping out of the side pocket, landing on the floor. She didn't notice. She walked straight to the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, and headed upstairs. Want to watch something tonight? She called down. I told her I had work to finish. After I heard the shower running, I walked over and picked up the key card. Summit Executive Suites. A co-working space downtown. Fancy, private, expensive. The kind of place people went when they needed privacy for important meetings, or when they needed a place to be alone with someone who wasn't their spouse. I took photos of the card, front and back, then placed it back in her purse. The next morning, I called Summit Executive Suites, pretending to be Keith Patterson. I'm calling to confirm my upcoming reservation, I said. Let me pull that up, the receptionist replied. I heard typing. Yes, Mr. Patterson, you have the suite reserved for tomorrow evening from 8 to midnight. Your guest, Ms. Bryant, is also listed on the access log. Perfect. Thank you. I managed and hung up. My hands were shaking. They had a system, a routine, reserved suites where they could be together without anyone knowing. How many times had she told me she was working late? How many nights had she actually been there with him? I pulled up the access logs that I'd managed to get sent to my email by claiming I needed them for expense reports. The history went back months. Multiple check-ins per week. Always late evening. Always both their names. The evidence was overwhelming. But I still wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet, because there was something bigger here. Something I needed to understand completely before I made my move. That Thursday, I met with an attorney. His name was Vincent Shaw, and he specialized in divorce and asset protection. He came highly recommended by Troy, who knew someone who'd been through a similar situation. Vincent's office was professional but not intimidating. He listened carefully as I laid out everything. The disappearances, the hotel visits, the house on Pinewood, the financial transfers, the co-working suite, the calendar with coded entries. I showed him every photo, every screenshot, every piece of evidence I gathered. When I finished, he sat back and steepled his fingers. You've done excellent work here, he said. This is exactly the kind of documentation we need. What happens now? I asked. Now we prepare. He opened a folder. In cases like this, where there's clear financial misconduct alongside infidelity, you have strong grounds for divorce. We can pursue asset protection, potentially recover funds she's transferred without your knowledge. But timing is critical. Why? Because if she suspects you know, she might accelerate whatever plan she has. Move more money. Destroy evidence. We need to be strategic. He leaned forward. Are you ready to see how deep this goes? I thought about it. About my marriage. About the woman I'd loved and trusted. About how completely she betrayed that trust. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Good. Vincent pulled out a legal pad. Then here's what we're going to do. Vincent laid out the plan carefully. We needed more evidence of her financial misconduct. Specifically, we needed to prove she'd been transferring marital assets with the intention of depriving me of my fair share. That requires establishing a pattern, he explained, and ideally, catching her in the act of another transfer. How do we do that? Monitor the joint account closely. The moment she makes another large transfer, document it immediately. We'll also file a motion to freeze assets once we initiate proceedings. He tapped his pen against the pad. But there's something else we need to consider. What? Her relationship with Patterson. If we can prove he was complicit in helping her hide assets, we can pursue legal action against him too. Alienation of affection. Fraud. Depending on how deep his involvement goes. The idea of holding Keith accountable too was satisfying. But Vincent held up a hand. But here's the important part. We wait. I frowned. Wait for what? For her to make a mistake. Right now, she thinks she's in control. She thinks you're clueless. That's our advantage. The moment we confront her, she'll lawyer up, lock everything down. So we gather every piece of evidence we can, and then we hit her with everything at once. No warning. No chance to prepare. How long? I asked. Not long, he said, smiling slightly. Something tells me she's planning something big, and when she makes her move, we'll be ready. Vincent was right. Over the next week, Melissa became increasingly distant. She stopped pretending to be interested in our conversations, stopped cooking dinner, stopped caring if I noticed when she left at night. She was pulling away, preparing for something, and then I overheard the phone call. I was walking past our bedroom when I heard her voice through the partially closed door. She was speaking quietly, but I could still make out the words. Just a few more days and it's all ours, she said. A pause. No, he doesn't suspect anything. He's been too distracted with work. Another pause, then a soft laugh. I can't wait either. Once everything's transferred, we can finally stop hiding. My blood ran cold. Everything's transferred. They were planning something big, something final. I backed away from the door silently and went downstairs. My hand was shaking as I pulled out my phone and texted Vincent. She's moving soon. We need to be ready. His response came immediately. On it. I'm filing preliminary paperwork tomorrow. Keep monitoring the account. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there beside her, this stranger wearing my wife's face, and wondered how I'd missed the signs for so long. Had she ever loved me? Or had I just been convenient? A stepping stone to something better? When she finally came to bed around 2 a.m., smelling like a cologne, I pretended to be asleep. But inside, I was counting down the hours until I could finally end this nightmare. 2 days later, I checked the GPS tracker out of habit. Melissa had left the house that morning saying she had a networking breakfast. The tracker showed her car moving across town, but not toward any restaurant. I watched the blue dot on my phone as it traveled to an area I didn't recognize. Then it stopped. I pulled up the map to see exactly where she'd parked. A real estate office. My heart started pounding. I drove there immediately, parking down the street with a clear view of the entrance. 40 minutes later, Melissa emerged with Keith Patterson. They were both smiling, laughing about something. He had his hand on the small of her back. They stood outside talking for a few more minutes before getting into separate cars and driving away. I waited until they were gone, then walked into the real estate office. The receptionist looked up with a bright smile. Can I help you? I'm interested in properties in the area, I said, thinking fast. I heard someone just made an offer on a place nearby. Oh, yes, she said cheerfully. We just processed paperwork for a lovely condo downtown. Are you looking for something similar? Downtown? I asked, my pulse quickening. She nodded. Beautiful building. Great investment. The couple who bought it were so excited. A couple. I felt sick. Who was the listing agent? Maybe I could work with them too. She glanced at her computer. That would be Brenda Willis. She's with clients right now, but I can have her call you later. I left my number, knowing I'd never answer. But I had what I needed. They'd bought property together, using money that was supposed to be ours. That evening, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went back to the real estate office after hours and waited outside until the lights went off. Then I approached Brenda Willis as she walked her car. Ms. Willis? I called out. She turned, her hand on her keys, looking cautious. Yes, my name is Tyler Bryant. My wife, Melissa, just purchased a property through your office. Her expression shifted to confused recognition. Oh, Mr. Bryant. I didn't realize that she was married. I finished. She looked away uncomfortably. I can't really discuss client details. I understand, but I need to know something. Was the down payment made from a joint account? Because if it was, that's fraud. She hesitated, clearly torn. Then she sighed. Look, I can't confirm specific financial details, but I will tell you this. The property was purchased under two names, Keith Patterson and Melissa Bryant. The down payment came from an account under Ms. Bryant's name only. Relief and fury washed over me simultaneously. So she'd moved the money from our joint account into her personal account, then used it to buy property with her boyfriend. Premeditated theft. Thank you, I said quietly. You might be hearing from my attorney soon. She nodded. I'm sorry. I walked back to my car feeling strangely calm. The anger was there, burning hot beneath the surface. But more than that, I felt clarity. She'd made her move. Now it was time to make mine. I called Vincent for my car. She bought a condo with him. Used our money for the down payment. His response was immediate. Perfect. That's exactly what we needed. I'm filing tomorrow morning. How fast can this move? Fast, he said. Trust me. By the end of the week, she won't know what hit her. Friday evening, everything was in place. Vincent had filed all the paperwork. The bank had been notified to freeze our joint accounts pending litigation. My attorney had prepared folders full of evidence, everything organized and documented. Now came the hard part, the confrontation. I texted Melissa that afternoon. We need to talk. Tonight, be home by 7. Her response came 30 minutes later. Is everything okay? Just be home, I replied. She walked through the door at 7:15, her expression wary. I was sitting at the dining table. The folders spread out in front of me. What's going on? She asked, setting down her purse. Sit down, I said calmly. We need to talk about Keith Patterson. Her face went white. What? I opened the first folder. We need to talk about the Lakeside Inn, about Pinewood Avenue, about Summit Executive Suites, about the condo you bought together with money you stole from our joint account. Tyler, I held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. I pulled out photo after photo, document after document. Her late night departures, the hotel receipts, the GPS tracking logs, the calendar with coded entries, the financial transfers, the property purchase, everything. She tried to speak multiple times, but I kept going, my voice steady and cold, laying out every single piece of evidence. When I finally finished, tears were streaming down her face. It's not what you think, she whispered. Really? I leaned back. Then please, explain what it is. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been planning to leave me for months, stealing our money to fund your new life with your boyfriend. She started crying harder, trying to deny it, to minimize it, to blame me for not being attentive enough. And that's when I stood up. When she tried to storm out, she found Vincent Shaw standing in the living room, briefcase in hand. Hello, Mrs. Bryant, he said calmly. We have a lot to discuss. Melissa froze in the doorway, staring at Vincent like he'd appeared out of thin air. Who are you? This is Vincent Shaw, I said. My attorney. Melissa's eyes went wide. You're what? Vincent stepped forward, professional and calm. Mrs. Bryant, I've been retained to represent your husband in divorce proceedings. Additionally, we'll be pursuing legal action regarding financial misconduct and asset misappropriation. You can't do this, she stammered, looking between us. Actually, we can, Vincent replied. And we are. As of this morning, your joint accounts have been frozen pending investigation. Any attempt to access or transfer additional funds will be documented and used as evidence. She turned to me, her face crumbling. Tyler, please. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers. We needed lawyers the moment you started stealing from me. I said, quietly. Vincent opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. These are copies of all evidence we've gathered. Bank transfers, GPS tracking logs, hotel receipts, property purchase documents, text messages, calendar entries. He set them on the table. Everything is documented. Every lie, every late night visit, every dollar you moved without authorization. Melissa sank into a chair, her hands shaking. This is insane. You're being insane. Vincent's expression didn't change. Mrs. Bryant, I strongly suggest you retain legal counsel immediately. You're facing serious allegations. Fraud, asset concealment, breach of fiduciary duty. She looked up at him. What does that mean? It means, I said, standing up, that every single choice you made has consequences, and you're about to face all of them. Over the next hour, Vincent methodically explained the legal situation. Every financial transfer Melissa had made could be traced and documented. Because the money had come from marital assets, she'd had no legal right to move it without my knowledge or consent. The property purchase was particularly damaging. Under state law, Any major financial decision made during marriage required both spouses' agreement. By buying the condo with Keith using our money, she committed fraud. But it gets worse, Vincent continued. Mr. Patterson's financial contribution to the purchase creates liability for him as well. He knowingly participated in helping you misappropriate marital assets. We can pursue legal action against him for conversion and potentially alienation of affection. Melissa's face had gone from red to pale to gray. What do you want? She finally whispered. Vincent looked at me. I took a breath. I want a divorce. I want every penny you took returned. I want you out of this house. And I want you to know that I have evidence of everything. If you try to fight this, if you try to lie your way out of it, every single piece of documentation will be submitted to the court. She started crying again. But this time, there was no manipulation in it. Just the raw realization that she'd lost. That every lie had been exposed. That she had no leverage left. You destroyed us, I said quietly. Not me. You. Vincent gathered his papers. Mrs. Bryant, you have 72 hours to retain counsel and respond to the divorce petition. In the meantime, you're required to vacate the marital home. She looked up, shocked. I have nowhere to go. Try Keith's place, I suggested coldly. I'm sure he'll be happy to help, especially now that he knows the legal trouble he's in. She stumbled out of the house that night with 2 suitcases, her phone, and the crushing weight of her choices. I watched her drive away, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The fallout was swift and brutal. Within a week, Keith Patterson learned the full extent of the legal situation. His attorney informed him that his involvement in the property purchase exposed him to serious liability. That was Monday. By Wednesday, according to my attorney's sources, Keith had kicked Melissa out of his house. The carefully constructed fantasy they'd built together crumbled the moment real consequences appeared. Melissa tried calling me dozens of times, leaving tearful voicemails, sending long text messages begging for another chance. But I blocked her number on Vincent's advice. All communication had to go through our attorneys now. The property sale was put on hold pending the divorce proceedings. The judge ordered an immediate freeze on all assets and a forensic accounting of our finances. Every transfer Melissa had made was being examined and documented. She'd have to return it all, not because she wanted to, but because the law required it. My company was supportive throughout everything. My boss had heard rumors, but waited for me to come forward. When I finally explained what had happened, he simply nodded. Take whatever time you need. Family comes first. Even when family falls apart. I moved into a new apartment across town. Smaller than the house, but it was mine. No memories. No lies. Just clean white walls and the sound of silence. Troy helped me move, along with a few other friends who'd heard what happened. Nobody said much. They just showed up, carried boxes, and made sure I wasn't alone. That was enough. 2 months later, my life looked completely different. The divorce was moving forward smoothly. Melissa had finally retained an attorney, but there wasn't much they could do. The evidence was overwhelming. She'd agreed to return the money she'd taken, though it required selling the condo at a loss. Keith Patterson was facing his own legal troubles. His company had launched an internal investigation into his conduct, and he'd been quietly placed on administrative leave. Karma, it seemed, was working overtime. I'd started therapy to process everything, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to make sure I healed properly. Dr. Carver, the couples therapist who'd seen to Melissa's lies, recommended someone excellent. The sessions helped me understand that I hadn't failed. I'd trusted someone who wasn't trustworthy. That wasn't a character flaw. It was human. Work was going well. I'd thrown myself into a new project, and my performance had been noticed. My boss had hinted at a possible promotion. Life was moving forward. And then late one Thursday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Please, I need to talk to you. It's important. I stared at the message for a long time. I knew it was Melissa. She'd gotten a new number just to reach me. Every instinct told me to delete it, block the number, move on. But a small part of me was curious. What could she possibly have left to say? Against my better judgment, I replied, "What do you want?" Her response came immediately. To see you. Please. Just once. I can explain everything. There's nothing to explain, I typed back. But she kept messaging. Pleading. Desperate. Finally, I agreed to meet her for coffee. One conversation. That was it. Then I'd close this chapter forever. We met at a neutral coffee shop on Saturday morning. I arrived early, choosing a table by the window where everything felt open and visible. When Melissa walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy bun. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes. She'd lost weight. She sat down across from me, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't even sipped. "Thank you for meeting me," she said quietly. I didn't respond, just waited. "I made terrible choices," she continued. "I hurt you. I destroyed our marriage. I was selfish and stupid, and I'm so sorry." I stayed silent. "Do you think," her voice cracked, "do you think we could ever fix this? Start over?" I studied her face, looking for any sign of the woman I'd married 6 years ago. But she was gone. Or maybe she'd never really existed. "No," I said simply. "Tyler, please." I held up my hand. "You didn't just make mistakes, Melissa. You calculated every step. You lied to my face for months while building a completely separate life. You stole from me. You gaslit me when I started asking questions. Those aren't mistakes. That's who you are." Tears streamed down her face. "I've lost everything. Keith won't talk to me. I had to move back in with my parents. Everyone knows what I did." "I know," I said. "But here's the thing. You didn't lose everything. You threw it away. Every single piece." There was a long silence. Then I stood up. "I'm done now, Melissa. Truly done. I don't hate you. I just don't care anymore." I walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear her crying. But it wasn't my problem anymore. I drove to my apartment, my new life waiting. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. My phone buzzed with a text from Troy. "Dinner tomorrow? Got someone I want you to meet." I smiled and replied, "Sure, sounds good." The future stretched out before me. Unknown, unplanned, but finally completely mine.